Well, welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you for joining me today on this episode. My name is Brittany Ford, and I'm a content creator and podcaster and nutritionist and all of the things. And I took a week off last week from the podcast, which is the first week I've taken off in a very long time. Even though I had a baby in July, I still, maintained everything and pre-recorded and did all the things. But last week I was traveling and then I got hit with food poisoning, and there was no way I was about to hop on the mic when I was feeling that low. And it just actually made me kind of reflect on my journey briefly to the podcast and how I got to this point where, I remember being at a point where I was like, I have to produce an episode every single week and I can't miss a week. And now I do 2 episodes a week and the show is growing and it's awesome. But I'm definitely not as strict as I once was about it. And I saw recently a friend post about how she's had her podcast for, X amount of weeks in a row, and she's celebrating. She's never missed a single one. And while I think that, self-discipline like that is amazing, and I have a lot of self-discipline, I also think there's just a sense of balance and also reality that needs to be thrown in the mix. I think of all of the podcasts that I listen to, and if I hopped onto one and the host was like, yeah, last week I was sick and I was traveling and I wasn't able to produce an episode and I had food poisoning and I was in bed all day, my response would be, wow, that's terrible. I hope you feel better. There's no hard feelings of you not showing up and having a podcast episode. The most important thing is that you recover. And I think that's kind of the point that I'm at now is let's be very authentic about content and podcasting at this point. And I'm trying to get away from formal or formalities around content in general across all platforms, which includes the podcast, because I just think we are kind of moving past that in general as a society of very curated content. Anyway, so I was sick and I was traveling, and I'm back this week, and I hope you are ready for a couple of great episodes. And yeah, there's lots and lots of episodes coming in 2025, which I'm really stoked about. So this episode today was awesome. I got to interview Serenity Carr, who is the co-founder of Serenity Kids. And I alluded to this on the episode, but I first found out about Serenity Kids baby food when I listened to Ben Greenfield's podcast with them. I think it was in maybe 2019. Obviously, I didn't have a kid at that point. And then I re-listened to the episode and really just dove into this idea of healthy food for babies, for infants, for kids, and very healthy, to the point of if I was going to create a baby food, what would it be? And it would honestly be Serenity Kids. It hits every single marker, every single thing on my checklist in terms of being organic, grass-fed, wild-caught salmon. So the quality check there is there. But then it's also very focused on high fat, high protein, lower sugar, not these carb-filled pouches that we're seeing kids have, or rice puffs and so much processed food. It's a very whole foods, paleo, nourishing approach, which is exactly what I would do if I were to ever create something, which is not in my wheelhouse, but it's exactly what I would do, which is why I love it and have it for myself for my son, as we kind of start to navigate solids and bringing in food in the next month. And I will definitely do an episode on what I choose and what I think is the right way for me personally in that realm. So enjoy this podcast episode. I think this is for all of the parents out there, or even the pregnant mamas who are wow, I have no idea what to feed my kid. I want them to be super healthy and grow up strong and, not deal with a lot of the developmental issues that we're seeing in kids now. What can we do? What role does nutrition play in that? And we talk a lot about that on this episode today. So Serenity Kids will probably always be the only baby food company I recommend. And I use myself. Everything else I will make from scratch. And you can use my discount code. I really suggest you do. Biohacking Brittany 15 for 15% off of your first time orders at myserenitykids.com/discount/biohacking Brittany 15. I will put that in my show notes and on my website so you can find it really easily, and definitely use that so that you can save and not have to pay as much. You know, it really does make a difference when we are placing these orders for our kids and they eat a lot, that type of thing. And I'm actually kind of going to spend some of my Christmas break revamping my website a little bit and create a space that is for all of the baby and kid products that I recommend. You know, I have all the biohacking tech and supplements and longevity products that you can use that are fabulous. But now I have actually quite a few brands that I love for pregnancy, fertility, and for babies. And I want to create a space that I can just send people to that's like, this is the baby food I use. These are the clothes that I buy that are organic cotton, etc., so that there's like a healthy, easy page for everyone to go to. So that's coming. Enjoy this podcast episode. Before we dive in, a shout out to Qualia Life. Speaking of longevity, Qualia Life makes a product called Qualia Senolytic, which I love. And this is all about increasing the senescence of our cells, which is one of the hallmarks of aging and basically helps with cellular turnover. They have this product, Qualia Senolytic. You take it every quarter. It's kind of the idea. And you take it for 2 days out of that time. I guess you could do it every month if you really wanted to. But this really just helps with longevity in a very substantial way. And I love this. I did it recently. I'll probably do it again in the new year, just to really help with cellular health and longevity. You can head to qualialife.com/biohacking Brittany for 50% off your purchase of Qualia Senolytic. Okay. And then if you use my discount Brittany at checkout, you actually get an extra 15% off, which is wild. So definitely check out Qualia Life if you are prioritizing longevity right now and next year as we move into a new space. And a shout out to Bioptimizers. They make the best magnesium on the market. Okay. Their magnesium is full spectrum. It has 7 different types of magnesium in it. And I take it every single night. I have their capsules and their powder. Their powder is like a fruit punch powder that I have that I love. And this just really helps with stress, fatigue, low energy, sore muscles. Magnesium is actually involved in over 300 processes in the body. So you can imagine how most people are deficient with our diet today and how important it is to actually replenish all of those processes. So definitely check out Bioptimizer's Magnesium Breakthrough. You can use my discount code Biohacking Brittany and we'll get you 10% off. And you actually can use that code for any of their products and you can save, which is the biggest discount that they do. So check that out. Enjoy this episode and I will catch you on Friday for another one. All right. Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. I am so excited that you are joining me today for this episode. This one is one that I've actually been waiting to do for quite a few months now. I am joined by Serenity Carr, who is the co-founder and CEO of Serenity Kids. This is a baby food brand, which is transforming the industry with nutrient-dense, savory options for babies. So she is going to share her journey of overcoming health challenges through diet, her passion for changing the way we feed children, and how her and her husband, Joe, created Serenity Kids for their daughter, Della. Now, I actually first heard about Serenity Kids on Ben Greenfield's podcast a few years ago. And I just re-listened to that episode now that I have a kid and it hits so different. So I'm so excited, Serenity, to pick your brain today. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Wow. Blast from the past, that Ben Greenfield podcast. That was a good one.
Yeah, it really was. And I really just didn't, like, I loved the episode, but you know, a few years ago, I didn't have kids, wasn't pregnant. It didn't really hit as much as it hits now when my baby is, you know, starting solids probably within the next month. And I'm like, oh, okay, what do I do? Where do I go? What are my options? And you kind of freeze and get a bit overwhelmed. But before we get into all of that, I want to talk to you about how your story kind of transformed what you did and how you looked at baby food.
Yeah. So I was actually a sick little baby at 2 weeks old, I had my very first ear infection and a round of antibiotics. And then I pretty much had ear infections, strep throat, all of that, a few times a year, lots and lots of antibiotics in the 80s, which, as we know now, kills all the good gut microbiome and all the good microflora, right? So I had really bad digestion problems starting in childhood. I remember seeing a Pepto-Bismol commercial when I was maybe 9 years old. And I thought, oh, that's what I need. I need Pepto-Bismol. So I went to my mom. I'm like, hey, Mom, I need some Pepto-Bismol for my stomach. And she said, oh, honey, that stuff won't really help you. And I just remember thinking, oh, I guess stomachs are just supposed to hurt. And my stomach pretty much hurt my entire life. And then I got another ear infection in my 30s and went to the doctor afterwards and got a prescription. And then it just killed my stomach worse than normal. I couldn't eat any food or drink any water without serious pain. And so I went back to the doctor and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I can't eat without pain. And she put me on this antacid, basically. I think it was a purple pill or something, Prilosec. And she told me I had to take it every day for the rest of my life. And I thought, I'm not doing that. I don't know what I'm going to do because I can't eat without serious pain, but I'm sure not doing that. So I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, he's a shrink. So he calms me down all the time. I'm like, Dad, I have this problem. And he said, you should read the book I gave you last year for Christmas, the one on the paleo diet. And I'm like, paleo diet. I don't remember. He gives me so many dad books. And I went to my bookshelf and I'm like, oh, there you are. So I read it and I was like, well, might as well try it. It's better than nothing. It's better than taking this pill every day forever. And so I tried it and it worked. I healed my digestion by changing my diet. And when it came time to think about having a baby someday, I had met my now husband and co-founder, Joe. And we were at actually a paleo conference here in Austin in 2016. And I started feeling all fuzzy and maternal. And I'm like, Joe, let's go find the baby stuff. And there wasn't anything. And I thought, I guess I'll just make my own baby food. But Joe was on a mission to start a business that had a product because I made him read Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek. And so he was trying to come up with a product to sell. And I just remember he was like, we've got to do this baby food company. It meets all these criteria and da-da-da-da. We're part of the audience and all these things. And I thought he was bonkers. But I didn't, like you, I had never been a mom. So I didn't know what kids needed to eat. I knew what, grown-ups needed to eat from my own personal journey. But in terms of babies, I called the summer of 2016 my summer of nerddom, where I read everything I could. Conveniently, a lot of my health icons had kids like a couple years prior. So they were all blogging about what they were feeding their kids. And every single one of them was making compromises for convenience. And I thought, if these are for me, the creme de la creme of health experts, and they are wishing for something better out in the market, then that is something the world needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love how you saw that opportunity and just kind of went for it. So what happened when you had your daughter? How did you kind of navigate that space now that you had to feed her? Yeah, did you just make everything from scratch and then start packaging it? What was the transition there?
Well, she was born August 5th, 2018, which was the day our products launched for sale online. We tried to get the products out before she came out, but it didn't exactly work that way. The universe had other plans. It took us 2 years to launch our first products because we were trying to make baby food that had a substantial amount of fat and protein on equipment designed for baby food that was all fruit, all carbs. So we had to get some custom made parts for the equipment and things like that. So it took us longer to launch our products. And then Della came a couple of weeks early, I think, so she could be born on the same day as our chicken and beef pouches, the OG.
I love that. And I love that you talk about protein and fat. Now, most people listening obviously know that these are two macronutrients that are super important for us. but it's not necessarily something that you would actually factor in when feeding a baby and a child. Like, got to get your protein in is like not the narrative that is around kids, to be honest, at all, even older kids. So how, like, first of all, what are the fats and proteins that you're including in your food? And how do you think that impacts like kids as they grow?
Well, the fats and proteins that we use are all from nature. So the proteins that we use are really mostly meats. And it's like wild caught salmon, wild raised bison, grass-fed, grass-finished beef, organic chicken. So we really want to get as much whole food nutrition into these pouches as possible. In fact, that's our guiding light, our North Star is what are the best possible ingredients. And then for a lot of our pouches, we supplement the fats with olive oil because the cuts that we're buying from meat aren't necessarily fatty enough. And we knew we wanted to have balanced macronutrients, mostly because the rest of the baby food aisle is 100% carbs. So we wanted ours to be more nutrient dense on the fat and protein side. And then you're right. The narrative today isn't a lot about fat and protein, but I think it should be. And that's what we're out here to do, right? That's the message that I hope that your listeners take away is that just as protein is important for us, it's as or more important for our children. Both of my parents are in the mental health industry. My dad, like I said, is a psychologist, and my mom was a counselor before she retired. And they have seen firsthand how important taking care of your body is for your mental health, right? My dad always jokes that if all of his patients would stop eating white foods and start taking a walk every day, he'd be out of a job. So I know how important what you eat is for your mental health. And we're really changing the world, starting with kids. You know, there's a mental health crisis as well as a metabolic health crisis amongst our children today. And our products really address both of those.
The holidays are upon us, and you know what that means. It's a crazy stressful time of year for all of us. From shopping to hosting family and attending endless parties, the pressure can really start to rise. That's why I want to tell you about Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers. This is my absolute favorite magnesium product that I've been taking for over 2 years. It has all 7 forms of magnesium in it, making it a full spectrum magnesium supplement. Magnesium is essential for managing stress and maintaining a calm, balanced mood. However, most people are actually deficient, which can lead to a very poor stress response, fatigue, and even poor sleep quality. Magnesium Breakthrough helps balance your levels so you can get a better handle on the holiday madness. Their comprehensive formula supports everything from relaxation to energy production, so you can power through the season without burning out. Wouldn't that be nice? So don't let stress and burnout really ruin your holidays this year. Get Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers and give your body the magnesium that it actually craves. It's the perfect gift for yourself or a loved one this holiday season. I have the capsule forms. I also have the powders that I love, and I take it every single day, and all of my family members do as well. For an exclusive offer, go to bioptimizers.com/biohackingbritney and use my promo code biohackingbritney during checkout to save 10%. And if you subscribe, not only will you get amazing discounts and free gifts, you will also make sure your monthly supply is guaranteed. Like I said, this is my absolute favorite magnesium, and I highly recommend it to everybody. Yeah, I think that's really important. And especially when we look at the statistics of issues that kids are having with their health, whether it's infants, babies, or kids later on, things like being on the neurodivergent scale or spectrum, or, including ADD and even autism, and then behavioral problems, like quote unquote behavioral problems. And then when I see these statistics and I hear people talk about them online, I always think about, what are these kids eating? Like, are they actually getting enough healthy fats that is supporting their brain to grow as it should, but also function as it should? Because the brain is mostly made out of fat. And a lot of the time, like you said, I don't see people including that when we talk about these health issues we're seeing in our children today.
Yeah, and I'll take it one step further in terms of detoxification. So if you think about the toxins in the world, if your liver is clogged up by having to process out a whole bunch of sugars and all kinds of processed food and carbs, it's not going to be able to detox as effectively. So this addresses that kind of issue also.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those listening who are feeding little ones, how would they know if they are feeding enough fat or enough protein?
I will say it is really hard to overeat protein. I don't know if you've ever tried putting more protein in your diet, but you can trust that a kid will stop eating protein when it's time to eat the protein, when it's, when they've had enough. And then in terms of fat, I mean, if you overeat fat, you just excrete it. So it's not a huge risk. You do want to make sure that their poop is, soft serve kind of consistency, soft serve ice cream, that is consistency. They're having issues with constipation. Actually, I only bought another competitor's brand of pouches one time, and it was prunes, like pureed prunes, until I realized that coconut oil did the exact same thing for constipated babies. So, and our products actually also do the same thing because we've got a lot of fiber in them all, right? They have vegetables in them, and the olive oil is effective as well. So yeah, it's pretty hard to get too much of those things. In terms of getting enough, every baby is so different, and really every human is so different, right? There's not really a prescription for amount per day. It really depends on whether the baby's getting ready to going through a growth spurt, whether they are sick or what season it is even, right? So the thing that you can do as a mom that I learned in my research is you can trust your baby. And that comes with one caveat, and that is as long as you're not giving them hyperpalatable engineered foods that are designed to make them addicted, right? So you can't really trust your baby if you're giving them Cheetos all day long or French fries, right? But if you're giving them whole food options, they know, like it's an innate in their bodies in terms of what foods are good for them or not. And if they don't like something, I mean, it does take a few offerings often of a new food for a toddler before they might like it, right? Give them a stick of broccoli, let them hold it and chew on it, and then offer it again. Even if they don't eat it, you might want to offer. But if ultimately they don't go for it, like I would never eat tomatoes as a kid. And now I know that my body just doesn't really love tomatoes. It's just not really its thing. So, I really try hard to honor that in my daughter and honor her own intuition, because I'm not her higher power. I'm not the one who knows her body best. Ultimately, I want to teach her to know her body best so that she can trust herself when she gets.
Right. I love that. And I think that leads into the conversation of baby-led weaning versus purees, because baby-led weaning is very much on this idea of, put these foods in front of your baby and let them feed themselves and intuitively eat and understand when they're hungry and when they're full. But there is like negative side of it as well. The baby doesn't necessarily know what is the healthiest food, and they might just go for the, Cheerios versus the egg that you put in front of them. So I'm curious kind of like your take on baby-led weaning versus purees. Like, what was your experience and like, what do you recommend? Obviously you sell pouches, but like, you can kind of do a combo as well. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, that's what we did, actually. In fact, our kid wouldn't eat purees till she was maybe 9 or 10 months old. I'm like, go figure. We made this whole company for you. You won't even eat it, right?
Yeah.
So we ended up doing a lot of baby-led weaning during that time between 6 and 8 or 9 months when she started eating the pouches. She weaned early at about 9 months old. So I started feeding her raw goat milk, bone broth with pureed liver inside, and then some formulas that I had imported from Germany because Serenity Kids didn't have a formula product yet. So really making sure that she had access to a wide variety of choices. I mean, I think baby-led weaning is brilliant, right? Like we were just talking about, letting the babies explore, letting them experiment and not have to eat a piece of broccoli, but just hold it and smell it and lick it and touch it. In fact, even today with a new food, if Della's like, oh, that looks gross, I don't want it, I'm like, why don't you just pick it up? Why don't you just touch it with your finger? why don't you just smell it? Why don't you give it a little lick? Like she still goes on this journey with new foods sometimes. And it all comes from when she was an infant.
I love that. I think there is something to be said about offering the foods multiple times in different settings. Babies and kids grow so much, so you never really know when it's going to stick and when it might not stick. So I think that makes sense. And as I'm thinking through this, because again, like this is my reality in the next few weeks, I have to start doing this. I was thinking about, and I was reading about baby-led weaning and like, I have all these books and very much like you, I eat paleo, so very aligned. But I was thinking about almost how you introduce the food and the order of food. So obviously, like in the beginning, you do like one food at a time for multiple days. You see if they have the reaction, all of that stuff. But when you get to a point where a baby's eating multiple foods at one meal, I was thinking like, what if you did the most nutrient dense, healthiest food first, as in like the protein, the meat, the egg, whatever it is. And then you follow up with like giving them the yam or something afterwards so that the carbohydrates come after the fat and protein. Like, what do you think about something like that?
Well, that's what we did. And that's what we still often do today. So in terms, like I said, it kind of depends on your kid, but I was a sugar addict growing up, which is part of the reason we're here. And so Della does tend towards sweet things, right? She'd pick a banana over an egg any day, all day long. So what I do is I do offer the more nutrient dense. And in fact, babies at about 6 months old, they start developing the enzymes needed to digest more foods other than mother's milk. But really, I would say fat and proteins are going to be the easiest for them to digest at that young of an age. It takes a few more months before their other enzymes are there to really digest more carbohydrates. So what I offered to Della at the beginning was egg yolk, egg white, once I realized she wasn't allergic. Like I said, I gave her liver pureed in homemade bone broth every day for about a year as one of her many options. She loved it, which I loved. And a little bit of avocado, right? Those kind of high fat, easy vegetable. And then kind of go from there. And, some days the kid might not need a whole bunch of fat or protein. Maybe they do need to eat more fruit. And really, I think the other thing that I want to make sure that new moms understand is that nobody knows their baby better than they do. Nobody. And nobody ever will. So, there's a special bond and spiritual connection between you and your baby. And you can just get a feeling about things and trust that, right? So like for example, my niece is 11 months old and she is like a blueberry-aholic. My sister's like, I haven't Googled blueberry toxicity yet because I don't want to know. But, that little thing, she probably needs all of those antioxidants and the specific kind that's in the blueberries and not necessarily in the strawberries, right? So I'm like, I want to eat a lot of blueberries. She's cool. She's good. She's healthy. She's happy.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's something so special about the bond between a mom and a baby. Like you said, I think it's really hard to understand it until you have your own kids, to be honest. Like it's really hard to understand how connected you are in this like way that is even hard to put into words. So I think there's something beautiful, like you said, about, honoring what they want to eat, watching them, knowing your baby, what is best for your baby and going from there. And I love what you did with the egg, the liver and the bone broth. It's very Weston A. Price, which is like one of my, books that I'm reading as well, is Nourishing Traditions for Childcare, I think, something like that.
It's on my desk right now. It was basically, I read through most of the whole thing before starting the business as inputs into what kind of products I should make.
Yeah, very smart. I love that. And so you started with these pouches and, obviously they are set apart from the market because, again, they're high quality ingredients, protein, fat, everything like that. And then now you also have puffs. I was just looking at your website and you also have formula. So how did that kind of come about? And like, what were the challenges in kind of creating such healthy products for those categories?
Yeah, when she got to be about 8 or 9 months old, I started wanted to give her some little finger foods that were not just green peas that girl could eat. She ate, I swear, 100 green peas in a row once when she was, like old or something. And so I bought a few of the puffs that were on the market, and I just didn't like them. They were rice-based, which, that has a lot of arsenic in it. They had a lot of artificial flavors, and they didn't taste like much. And so I decided that I wanted to try and see if I could launch a puff snack. Early on, we could not. So I knew I didn't want it to be a grain, right? Because I've been on this kind of no grain kick for a while. And we tried cassava. And frankly, the first source that we tried, we could not get it just had way too many heavy metals in it. I'm like, I wouldn't feel comfortable feeding this to my kid. I'm not going to launch this in the market. And that was really our rubric for product launch. Would I feel safe giving it to my kid? Would I want to give her this? So that was a big challenge that we had. But then we found this great source out of Nicaragua that was much, much, much better. And we decided that we wanted to make it coated with vegetables on the outside so that kids would start getting used to the taste of vegetables like beets, like broccoli, like cauliflower. So we use those as a season application on the outside of the puffs. And I'm really proud of that product. It is hard to make. And it's something that sells really well because parents really like it. And then the formula, like I said, Della weaned early, unexpectedly. So I needed to find a product to give her at 9 months old. And all of it, every single one had bad oils, like seed oils. They all had corn. A lot of them were just based on soy and corn. That was the main components of most of the formulas out there. And that didn't work for me. I got so mad about the garbage on the formula aisle, and I decided to make my own. It took a couple of years to get out. It was it's the hardest thing I've maybe ever done. And it was really, really hard, but I'm super proud of it. It has 8 different sources of fats that more closely mimic the fatty acid profile of mother's milk than any formula out there. And it's made with lactose as the primary carb, not corn. So that also makes me really, really happy. And then it has the methylated versions of vitamin B6 and B12 and just an overall, honestly, it's the best formula on the market. And it's a toddler formula. The FDA does not allow us to call it an infant formula because we haven't gone through the official infant formula studies, which, my opinion, I don't know, there's some ethics required to test on babies. But that aside, you also can't make it you have to use seed oils in infant formulas today. So that's not something that is an option for us, for our brand. And we're just going to leave it as a toddler formula.
Have you heard about senolytics yet? It's a class of ingredients discovered less than 10 years ago, and they're being called the biggest discovery of our time for promoting healthy aging and enhancing your physical prime. Your life goals in your career and beyond require productivity. Let's be honest. The aging process, however, is not our friend when it comes to endless energy and productivity. And that's why I use Qualia Senolytic. If someone had told me that there are science-backed ingredients that could help me feel 15 years younger in a matter of months, I would not have believed it until I tried this. As we age, everyone accumulates these senescent cells in our bodies. They're also kind of known as zombie cells. They are old and worn out and not serving a useful function for our health anymore, but they're taking up space and nutrients from our healthy cells. Much like getting rid of dead leaves off of a plant, Qualia Senolytic removes those worn out senescent cells to allow for the rest of them to thrive in the body. The best part is you actually only need to take it 2 days a month. When I have taken this, I've had higher energy levels. I have been more productive, felt more enthusiastic in life, and also had less aches and pains. So resist aging at the cellular level. Try Qualia Senolytic right now. Go to qualialife.com/Brittany for up to 50% off, which is wild. And use code Brittany at checkout for an additional 15% off. That's Qualia, spelled Qualia, life.com/Brittany for an extra 15% off of your purchase. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode, and I will definitely be taking my share this month. Nice. But it's a toddler formula that you could use for your baby.
We get a lot of stories about people who've talked to their care providers and they have successfully given it to their babies.
Yeah, nice. That's great. I'm curious. I was on the weekend. I was on TikTok, just wasting time, and I came across this video, and this woman was explaining how food for fun or food before one is just for fun, and how babies should only be on breast milk until the age of 1. And she's like a breast milk consultant, whatever she is, expert, who knows. And I'm watching this video and I'm like, no way, like as if somebody's actually recommending this. What do you think when you see people say stuff like that? Like, stick to breast milk only until age 1, in my mind, is outrageous. But I'm so curious what you think when you see stuff like that.
Well, it kind of, I agree with you. I think that if there are moms out there that have a healthy milk supply, a baby with successful latch, no lip or tongue ties, no issues with anything like that, that have the time and capacity to nurse their kid only until the kid's 1, more power to them, right? Like, I do not think that kid would be unhealthy. I don't think it's a terrible idea. I actually do think that there could be cases where that might be the exact right thing for that kid. And I will say, in our culture today, I don't know any of those moms that do that. I know some that would have liked to, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to nurse or not nurse that long or kind of whatever. So I do think it's possible probably to have a healthy relationship with nursing and food for a kid. Because a 1-year-old is still a baby. Like, we can't, I don't know, sort of forget that because they're sort of toddling around, but they're really still babies. I think that most moms probably need some supplemental complementary foods, either while they're still nursing or after they're done with their nursing journey, or even if they've never started the nursing journey to begin with, for whatever reason, be it choice or nature. So I think that if a baby is already not on breast milk from an earlier age, maybe 1 to 4 months, then starting with solid food a little bit sooner than 6 months could be a good option, maybe in the form of bone broth and pureed liver, maybe some egg yolk, maybe some bone marrow, some really super nutrient dense, soft things, not really a lot of vegetables and carbs at that point, except in the form of maybe some milk. Like I said, I fed raw goat's milk to my daughter, and every batch was tested for pathogens. So I felt confident that was a safe food for her. But I realized, not all moms would even have access to that or the courage to do that, right? But I had a really great healthcare provider that helped give me some confidence, and it worked really well.
My understanding is that once a baby hits around 6 months old, the breast milk no longer has enough iron for their needs as well as cholesterol. And so that's kind of why the 6 month is like typically recommended by like the WHO or, these different health organizations in different countries, is to be able to give baby enough nutrients that breast milk now doesn't have. And so that's why it's like, typically recommended. And I guess it would be nice to nurse for that long. I mean, it's obviously there's a lot of oxytocin that's released when you nurse for both mom and for baby, but nutrient wise, I just wonder if that is enough for, age 6 months to 12 months.
Yeah, I wonder that too. I mean, I am in general distrustful of large organizations like the WHO. And I wonder where they get their science, right? If they're getting it from moms who are malnourished, which a lot of us are at this day and age, right? Then that might be correct. But if there's a mom that's eating a really healthy ancestral diet filled with really great sources of iron, maybe it's not as big of an issue, right? So it really, I think, depends on the nursing relationship and the health of the mom, and health and energy and mental health also, right? Nursing that long is ooh, quite a commitment. So yeah, I don't know. Some babies, I'm sure, need more iron than is in their mom's milk. And I just wonder, how do they really know that? Experimenting on babies is unethical. So I don't know. I'm distrustful of absolute science statements kind of like that come from those kinds of organizations, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. It was in the Nourishing Traditions book as well, which I thought was interesting.
It is.
Yeah. But you're right. Like if all of us were existing in this like silo of optimal health, right? Would that recommendation actually still be true? Maybe not. Maybe it would be like, okay, yeah, baby can exist on breast milk and be super, super healthy because mom is super, super healthy. But I just don't think that's the reality, unfortunately, for most people. Yeah. I'm curious what you think is coming down the road in terms of like trends in the baby food or toddler space. Like, do you see competitors kind of coming close to kind of what you're starting to make and valuing organic and that type of thing? Or what do you see coming down the pipeline?
I will say so far, it doesn't seem like other baby food companies have been able to succeed in the meat baby food space. I eat a lot of baby food. We taste a lot. We taste a lot of baby food. And I don't know. I sort of think our secret sauce might be the fact that we buy the very best proteins and vegetables that we can because they just taste so much better. We just did a tasting last week and I'm like, ugh, what is this? And I don't know. I think babies, they start getting attracted to things that taste good once they develop their taste buds. And we haven't really seen many competitors enter the space. I mean, our goal when we started out, me and Joe, was to transform the baby food aisle. And our idea was that the big food companies would see how successful we were and copy us. So far, they have not copied us, but we are still transforming the baby food aisle because we have 35 products out now. And we have some retailers that have taken all of our products. They have everything we make on their shelf. And we're starting to edge out some of those big, behind the times baby food companies because parents are choosing us.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, it's interesting that they're not really following suit. Hey, which is a little sad, honestly. Like I wish they could see like, wow, here's this super successful company. Maybe we should come up with like, organic this or chicken or beef or turkey that instead of everything as like banana and pear and mango and just like so sweet. It's so carby, all of it. It's like a fruit smoothie in every single meal.
That's right. And if I ate that all day, I'd have meltdown after meltdown if I ate fruit all day long, right? So, I mean, in terms of trends, one of the things that we just launched this year was our World Explorers line. So it is with around the world flavors like chicken stew that's Mexico inspired. We have chicken tikka masala. We have salmon teriyaki. We have a beef chimichurri that's really good. So in terms of that's really designed to capture the baby during that flavor window when their taste buds are just starting to develop during the 6 to 18 month stage. If you introduce them to these different kinds of flavors, different spices, different levels of bitterness, different levels of sour and salty, then they will be more likely to enjoy those same flavors later in life. And we know that a wide variety of foods leads to better health outcomes long term. So we really wanted to make sure that we get a huge variety of not only vegetables and proteins, but also spices and herbs for those babies to enjoy later in life.
Yeah, I love that. And I was just about to bring that up, actually. When I saw those, when you sent them to me, I told my husband to stay out of them and stay far away because I'm opening these pouches and it's like salmon teriyaki. And I was like, nope, I know you. I'm going to catch you at your desk working, like sucking back this like little pack here. Because I think that's awesome. And I love that as well is like, let's introduce baby to herbs and salt and these different spices rather than this like bland palette of like white rice with nothing on it and like, blueberries and that's it. And it's like, there's so much more to life. And I think that window that you talk about is so important, of letting them have these different spices so that they can become a healthier eater as they grow older. Yeah. And I actually wonder if there's any research, like, and I don't know because I haven't done it, but any research linking that type of thinking with like picky eaters who grow to be like 5, 6, 10 years old, who only eat like 4 different things, like chicken nuggets, and won't eat anything with any flavor or spice.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I know that there was a study done in the 1940s on orphans at an orphanage. And the nurses, the caretakers, would offer these babies, they had, 20 different kinds of foods, and they would arrange these foods in the exact same place in front of the kid every day for 3 meals a day. And the babies would, when they were sick, they would choose the bone broth and the less carby things to let their bodies kind of facilitate healing. And when they were, in the morning, they would eat things with more carbs because they needed more energy. So I know that some research has been done. That research is no longer ethical, right? Doing research on inmates and babies and people who can't consent is not done anymore. So it would have to be, big like literature reviews on, and it would have to be parents who claimed certain things, and it's just kind of really hard to tell. But there very well could be some things out there. I know that the USDA in 2020, for the very first time, released nutrition guidelines for children under the age of 2. They had never ever made any recommendations before that. And I was sitting on the edge of my seat. I was so nervous that, a bunch of militant vegans had infiltrated the government. We're gonna, tell them to only eat plant-based foods. But it's quite the opposite, actually. Our products were very much in line with what the USDA recommended. And I was really happy to see that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I haven't looked into that, but that's great to hear. And yeah, obviously you're very much aware of like the vegetarian and vegan movement happening across North America. How do you think that plays into kids' health today? Like, if anything, I'm not sure what your experience is, but I see it and I feel a little worried, but what do you think?
No, I agree with you. I think that, like you said, because the brain is made of mostly fat, and the baby's spine actually doubles the first year of life. It doubles in length. Well, if you think about the building blocks of your neurological infrastructure, right? You've got bones, which need a ton of calcium and a lot of vitamin K and all these kinds of things. And then fats. There are a few countries that have, or maybe just a couple of European countries that have actually outlawed vegan diets for babies because a few babies passed because they just weren't given the foods they needed to even survive. It's really crap.
Yeah, that's really scary. And even when I see women who are pregnant who are vegan, I definitely, I know everyone has their own choices, and like I support everybody, but I just, from a nutritionist standpoint, and very much aligned with you. And when you read books like Nourishing Traditions, or you just really study the impact of those types of choices on pregnancy, fertility, baby, like I worry for the health of everybody involved there, from a behavior standpoint, from a growth standpoint, from a detox standpoint, everything. Like, yeah. And I don't really know if that whole vegan trend is going away anytime soon. For those listening who are new moms or who are new parents like myself, if you had any last piece of advice as they navigate nourishing their kids, what would it be that could really make the difference for them?
I would say try really, really hard to chill out about it. Right? I know that it can feel intense, but I think you can also have a lot of fun. Right? For me, I'm a foodie in recovery, basically. And for me, sharing food is a basic human, a way to bond and a way to enjoy nature and a way to enjoy community and a way to enjoy each other. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I have had to kind of work at just being more relaxed around things when it makes sense, right? And when it doesn't make sense, I'm really strict about it. Like for birthday parties for our now 6-year-old daughter, we take really healthy hot dog that we bought from Force of Nature. And she knows that if she wants to have a piece of cake at the birthday party, she's got to eat the protein first, right? We are very strict about that choice because sugar spikes is not fun for anyone in the family. But, but she still does get probably food dye and a lot of gluten and all these things in those cupcakes. And we're like, meh, a couple times a year is probably okay for her. If it was every week, we'd have a different discussion. So yeah, it's just about really learning how to have fun with it.
Yeah, you can't be super, super strict about it. And there's also something to be said about exposing your baby to these sensitivities and potentially even allergens so that they can actually build up a immunity and a proper response to them versus trying to keep them like gluten-free for the first 5 years of their life or something like that, like, which would be so difficult to do anyway. So I think that's a really balanced approach, which I'm happy to hear from a founder of such a healthy line of baby food.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if people are like, okay, sign me up, I want to get this delivered to my door, or they want to go, try your foods in person at, one of the retailers that you're in, where can they do that and how can they find you?
Yeah, you can get the best discounts on our website at myserenitykids.com. We also have similar discounts and really easy subscriptions on Amazon. And we're in 20,000 stores. So depending on your location geographically, we're in Albertsons, we're in Kroger, we're in H-E-B here in Texas, Sprouts, Whole Foods, Natural Grocers, Stop and Shop, Wegmans, Hy-Vee, Meijer. We're in a lot of grocery stores. So you can find us on our store locator online if you need some help with that.
That's awesome. Any plans to come into the Canadian market anytime soon?
We had looked at that, and you can currently buy our products on iHerb. So that is an option there. And if you don't see the flavor you want, you can ask for that. We do have some customers that are in the Toronto area, that's retailers that drive across actually and buy our food and bring it back to their store in Canada. But yeah, crossing the border with meat is very, very difficult from a regulation standpoint. So that's a tricky one for us.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because I'm in Canada. So I was looking at your subscription because it makes so much sense. But I'll look at iHerb and then maybe I'll message you guys on Instagram or figure out how I can find those people in Toronto that are bringing it in because I'm super curious who's doing that. And yeah.
I definitely don't want to say their name out loud.
Okay. Yeah. Keep it a secret. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This was a great episode. And yeah, I just think we're going to really help a lot of people who are just trying to navigate this new healthy food area for their kids.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for doing this podcast. This was a great one.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. If you're interested in finding the show notes or the sponsors for this episode, you can do so on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. Remember to follow me on Instagram where I'm most active. My handle is @biohackingbrittany. And if you're interested in working together and you want to email me directly, you can do that. My email is info@biohackingbrittany.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you tune in next week.